For the Where Do I Begin session. Welcome back. For those of us who missed the previous session, thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in viewing the previous session's recording, you can find it on the Summer Career Series website. This session is also being recorded and it's going to be available in a few days on the Summer Career Series website. If you don't wish to be recorded, feel free to drop off now. You'll be able to find the recording in a few days on the series website, and we'll also send you the link around the same time. We also suggest putting yourself in speaker view. If you have a question, use the raise hand button, or you can type it in the chat box. We love questions, so feel free to participate. And I'd also like to share a UCSC land acknowledgement. We're going to be sharing this in the chat window as well. The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas speaking Yupi tribe, the Amamutsan tribal band comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to Mission Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. Next, I'd like to introduce today's series and the session today. This is part of the 2021 Alumni Summer Career Series that consists of 6 panel discussions. And though the sessions in the series build off one another, you can also utilize them as standalone sessions. Those who attend the whole series will travel through the career process from the developing a strategy stage all the way to the I have a job, now what stage. So with each session, we hope that you'll find useful tips and strategies that will help prepare to launch your career search or even begin a new career, all while providing you opportunities to network with and receive support from your fellow banana slugs. So today's session is going to be focusing on interviewing and how these strategies have changed with the remote job market. So we're going to go through some introductions of our panel today. My name is Karen Zellers. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I graduated from Crown in 2019 with a degree in computer science. And during my time at UCSC, I became really interested both in tech and working at a tech company, but also in things like social justice, diversity, and who is getting admission to these tech companies. So I decided to combine both of those. And after job searching during my senior year, I ended up working as a recruiter at Amazon, and I've been working there for the last 2 years. When I'm not working and helping folks find their dream job at Amazon, I like to try different bakeries in San Francisco where I live. I like reading, and then I also volunteer on the Alumni Council. And next we have Shane Hillers.
Great, thank you, Karen. So as mentioned, my name is Shane Hillers. I graduated from Oaks in 2012 with a degree in modern literary studies and economics. Shortly after graduating, kind of didn't know what I was going to do, moved into some retail store management, went into e-commerce agency. And today, for just over the last 5 years, I lead the Google Workspace North America strategy go-to-market team and actively a hiring manager for various roles in the general business unit. So love to get a lot of tips. Happy for everyone joining. But with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Chris.
Hi, thanks. So yeah, I'm Chris. I graduated from College 9 with a degree in CS in 2018. So it's been 3 years now. I entered as a CS major, but I wasn't sure if it was something I really wanted to pursue. I think I kind of just did it because it was a safe default. But during my time at school, I explored UX design and UI design quite a bit. And then I ended up choosing CS as a result of those experiences. And I can talk a little bit more about them. I'm not knocking it at all. It just wasn't really for me. And I interned at OpenDNS for 2 years while I was in school. It's now been acquired. It's called Cisco Umbrella now. And after graduating, I joined Google Android Engineering Productivity Org. I've interviewed a bunch, and I've been interview trained and been an active interviewer here for a little over 2 years now. I've interviewed interns, new grads, and industry hires. So hope to be able to help you out a bit from the interviewer's perspective. Yeah, so I believe next is Sarah.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I graduated from Santa Cruz in 2019 with a business management economics degree. And like many, super lost in the process. But I knew my senior year, I really wanted to get into recruiting. So I started my career at Google contract. I've been there for, it was around a year and a half, I believe. And I did 3 different roles. I was an on-site candidate specialist where I hosted candidates around on the Google campuses, went into being a recruiter coordinator, scheduled interviews, and then I reviewed resumes. And now currently I'm at Microsoft contract as a full cycle technical recruiter, part of Azure hardware via through my agency Search Wizards. Super fun. I have a huge passion and talent, and I'm super excited to be here and be able to help you guys land your careers. And then going forward, so I am going to talk about a little bit more regarding the different interview aspects via either video or the best ways to prepare. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, I'll share. Present. There we go. Still getting used to Zoom. Perfect. Can you guys all see this? Yes? Okay, perfect. And then definitely, please, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please utilize the chat button. I want to make this as interactive as possible. So these are my banana slug tips to interviewing. So kind of as I mentioned, I'm currently a full cycle recruiter on site at Microsoft via Search Wizards. Like many, my journey to here was stressful, nerve-wracking, but also very, very exciting. I actually started my first internship, well, during my junior year. I worked at Ross Dress for Less, and that's actually where I met this recruiter named Robin, where I really realized I wanted to get into my next steps, love empowering others, really utilized LinkedIn and landed my different careers here. Definitely can go more into this outside, but I always want to go into, oh, is this? There we go. So as I usually like to start, right, I think, you know, in recruiting, there's a lot of different areas within that a lot of candidates don't know. So I always like to just start with giving kind of the forefront. So the differences between recruiters. So a recruiter coordinator is the person who schedules all your interviews. This can either be with within the different fields like UX, software engineer. So when you're reaching out to recruiters, a recruiter coordinator isn't the one who closes the candidate. They're the ones who schedules it. So I think that's really important to remember when you're reaching out, because when I was a recruiter coordinator, I got reached out to a lot of people, and just unfortunately I wasn't able to really direct them to the right direction just because I scheduled more than I sourced. And that brings me into the next area, which is sourcing. And so what a sourcer does is it's kind of similar to a headhunter. So they're the ones who, you know, have a job opening and then they have a job to fill, and then they kind of go ahead and headhunt and look for talent. So your best bet when you're reaching out to different sourcers and recruiters is to reach out to these areas, and then also really look at their LinkedIn to see kind of what specific topics that they source for. A lot of times recruiters will be really direct with like, hey, I'm looking for people with software engineer experience. I'm looking for UX designers. So this is just a great way for you to target the right people, because again, a lot of recruiters or anyone with in talent, they get lots of in-mail. So I think this is just a great way to just like stay atop of the game, is to reach out knowing that you've done your research. And then the recruiter is the one who is like this liaison between the candidate company, and then they help you bring you throughout the rest of the process. So I always like to give that little snippet just because I think it's really important. Definitely when I was a candidate, I did not realize there was a huge difference between these 3 areas. So it's definitely good to know. And then going into interviewing. So main tip is research. I cannot tell you enough how important it is to really understand the role that you're doing and understand the company and its mission. People definitely want to hire people who believe in the company, but more importantly, who are passionate about the role. You know, one time I had an interview where I came in and it was actually for one of like my dream companies, and I definitely messed up. It was actually for a recruiter coordinator position. But here I was, as kind of mentioned earlier, I was talking about sourcing and full cycling, and that definitely was a no-no. But I do remember the interviewers were very, very kind to me, and they told me in afterwards, like, hey, we think you would be a really good fit, but it just doesn't seem like you would be a fit for this role. And that was because I didn't really come in really understanding the position that I was interviewing for. So I think that's really important, is read the job details and really understand what role you're coming in for that interview. Another great resource is using Glassdoor. This is a huge thing I did in the past. So Glassdoor, they have different, it's free to sign up. You can look through different, you can actually look at like the different salaries people posted, kind of culture, as well as past questions. So you can kind of filter it with, like, let's say you are interviewing for a software engineer position. You can filter it for SWE's questions. And these are a great way to look at kind of past questions that were asked and really help you target where you want to, the best way to best prepare. I would then go into writing down your examples. I use the STAR method. If you guys haven't heard of it before, it's writing down the situation, the kind of technique you use, your actions, and then your results. It's a great way to really say the full scope of your examples, because I think, during interviews, a lot of times we get really nervous and we talk about, oh yeah, like, I definitely am a team player, or I do this, rather than, your biggest example is your actual experience, right? Let's say, did you, when you were working at a university, were you part of an organization where you were like the president, or you took on a project? Like, how many people did that in corporate? This is so important, because even though, sometimes I think we undermine ourselves that our experiences in college don't matter. That is far from true. Your experiences definitely matter. Previous to my role, I was a talent sourcer, and my hiring manager, when she interviewed me, all she asked about was my experiences as an Amazon Prime student ambassador. And I think that's why I got the role. So don't undermine yourself. You have so much value to bring. I definitely also recommend to practice with a friend. I think it's definitely easier. Sometimes you kind of can get caught in your head. So it's a lot easier when you can kind of have a friend that you trust to ask you questions and kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable. And also it's good because it can give you like a third perspective on how to interview. And then definitely ask questions. I cannot tell you enough how important this is, because you have to remember, the company isn't just interviewing you, you are interviewing them. And so many hiring managers that I talk to, or feedbacks that I've read, it doesn't look as good if you're not asking those questions, like hard-hitting questions, like, oh, tell me more about like the culture. What kind of things are you working on to promote DEI? Of course, like if that's your passion, ask about that. But when you kind of ask those hard-hitting questions, it makes the interviewers think, and then, it turns it more into a conversation. I always like to tell my candidates that I prep for interviews is, see it more like this is a potential teammate that you're going to work with, right? Like if this is the right fit for you, then it will work out, right? Like you want to see it as more of a colleague to colleague talking about how let's say you're doing for like a software engineer role and you're coding, like see it like these interviewers are human, and they've all been through it too as well. So they're there to point you into the right direction. Just be ready to listen to it, right? Listen to the feedback during the interviews, because I think that's definitely important, is remember to be yourself as well. I remember I had an interview where I, watched all the YouTube channels about how to best prepare. And, I thought I had unlocked, like I came in trying to be this person that I thought they wanted. And I remember the interviewer looked me in the face, stopped me and said, Sarah, I can tell you definitely prep, like these are all prepped words. And it made me kind of like stop, because I never had someone tell me that I sounded so rehearsed. And it made me realize that it's definitely good, like bring in this professionality, but also bring in yourself. People want to work. If they want to work with you, it will. And remember too, if one team doesn't work out, like at these big companies, there's so many teams. So don't see it. I'm a huge believer. It's not rejection, it's redirection. So if one team doesn't work out, again, there's a lot of teams within that maybe one company that you want to work at. So definitely keep trying again, taking that feedback. One of my current candidates, he's going to get an offer, and it's so amazing because my hiring manager was telling me how he actually interviewed previously, and then what happened was they gave him feedback, and the hiring manager remembered him because he interviewed again. He enrolled in a boot camp. Like, people remember this stuff, so definitely take in the feedback. And then yes, be yourself, because again, you have so much value to bring. And then for interviewing via video, I think, in this new way of interviewing, it's going to be a lot of virtual. I think definitely secure a quiet room with strong Wi-Fi. Don't get too nervous if it disconnects, but definitely I think you need to make yourself comfortable. So something that I like to do is I'll set myself up. I always like to sit outside a window. I don't know, I like the fresh light, but I'll have a cup of water for me. I also have a pen and paper, just in case like I have any questions that I want to write down during the interview, or things that like kind of pop into my head that I want to bring up. So try to make yourself as comfortable as possible. And then definitely, I would say, try to remember to look at the camera. I think that's really important. And then, prepping with a friend, because sometimes, I think our nervousness, it looks like we can wander, like our eyes. So it's definitely important to try to look at the camera. I always like to take a few deep breaths, and then I'm a very words of affirmation type of person. So I always write down, okay, Sarah, you're going to do great. So do anything that makes you comfortable, like taking a stroll before the interview, but definitely try to get settled in. And then definitely another thing I would say is ask your recruiter is there to help you. Like, trust me when I say, like, they want you to succeed in these interviews. And this is something that I never used to do, is like asking your own recruiter for resources. A lot of your recruiters will have like PDFs, or, for me, I do kickoff calls with all my different candidates. And so don't feel like you're bothering the recruiter if you ask, like, hey, before my interview, if you have the bandwidth, do you have time for maybe, like, you could say, do we have time for a call, like, to best prepare, or do you have any resources? Because a lot of them will be able to like give you resources to best help you. So definitely utilize that. Another thing I would say is practice using the video prior. And why I say that is, Zoom, there's different avenues of where they interview. At Amazon, they use Chime. Microsoft, we use Teams. Google uses Google Hangouts, and then there's Zoom. So I think it's really important, just to jump on the camera and just practice. Like, make sure, is your face in the like square? Do you have good lighting where they can see you? Does your voice does the voice and does it work, basically? So I think definitely before an interview, practice using the video, because you don't want to enter the interview and then get all flustered because either you don't know how to, like, the camera's not working or something along those lines. So I think that's definitely important. And then I would record yourself and practice interviewing over video. And this is something that, again, with practicing with a friend, I used to do this with my old clients, because I used to, I'm a motivational career coach on the side, but something I would do is I would practice with my clients going over video. And this is a great way, right? Because when I was talking about earlier, during a call, sometimes nerves, like I was telling one of my clients, I was saying, oh, your eyes kind of look like you're wandering, and you want to be careful along those lines. So I think having a friend to practice with can really help make sure, like, to stay focused on where you're speaking, right? Because sometimes our nerves can make us jumbled, or like we look off to the side. But I think another thing to remember too is it's okay to take breaks. Sometimes I feel like we jump so fast into wanting to ask the question or answer the question that we don't really take that time to really solidify what is the question being asked, right? And then when you are answering questions, remember to talk about past examples. During my time at UC Santa Cruz, I was part of this club where I was overseeing this many club members, and we worked on this project. Like, talk about the budget, like, go into past examples, because that's definitely the best way to shine. And then Karen, how are we doing on time?
Yep. I was just gonna chime in. I'm already seeing some really good questions in the chat, and we're actually gonna be moving into breakout rooms in just a second. so that you can ask Sarah, Chris, myself, and Shane any of the questions that you have. So the breakout rooms are going to be listed by the name of the host. So again, me, Sarah, Shane, and Chris, we're going to be hosting breakout rooms. So you can choose, which group you'd like to enter so you can get all your questions answered in a more intimate setting.
Perfect. Do I have time for the last slide then?
You have a minute. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll do this really fast. So bonus tip, networking. Networking is super, super huge. I definitely say when you're reaching out, reach out to warm connections. So people who went to UC Santa Cruz. So, after this presentation, please connect with all 4 of us. But, the one homework that I have for you guys is please send us a personalized note. I think that goes above and beyond, that quick little note, 30-second note, 1-minute note, will help you kind of form that relationship, but also being able to stand out, because a lot of people actually don't send personalized notes. And then when you're reaching out, reach out to the intention to learn, not what can I gain from it. I think you need to remember networking is a 2-way relationship. If you see that you're reaching out to this person for a short gain, trust me when I say you're not building a network, because network is so important. I have friends that I made connection with 2 years ago who then reached out to me to help me with my new opportunities. Use it as a 2-way relationship, and definitely follow up and thank them. I love when I get reach out saying, hey, Sarah, talking to you a year ago, I was able to land this role, or your advice really helped me here. I love hearing that. I love hearing the wins. So definitely remember, networking, it takes time. It's like building a new friendship. You got to put the plan in, but eventually it's going to grow into a relationship. And also remember, if someone doesn't reach out to you, don't take it so personally. Remember, because there's a lot going on. Find out, reach out, keep reaching out until you find those who want to reach back out to you and want to form that relationship. But it's all practice. It's not rejection, but redirection. And off to our breakout rooms.
Thank you, Sarah. I feel like I learned so much about kind of the different areas and things that I definitely didn't know in college. And yeah, looking forward to answering the questions that you all have.
Definitely.
I really appreciated just kind of speaking with some of you and answering your different questions. Next, we're actually going to have each breakout room host share one outcome or one learning that they talked about in their group. One of the questions that I got is about flexibility and how teams are adapting to remote interviewing. And I thought it was really interesting because, at least the teams that I've worked with, they are a lot more flexible, and they're understanding that this isn't the normal interview environment that you may typically be in. So for example, if you have issues with your internet, or you have issues with your sound, or, if there's some other technical difficulty, or if you get a package or something like that, they want you to be successful in the interview no matter what. And so I wouldn't be too nervous about, if there is some issue with remote interviewing. Like Sarah said, definitely you want to practice using the tools so that, you have the highest chance of being seamless and successful. But I think, just remember that the team wants you to be successful. They're talking to you because they are interested in you for the team, and definitely don't stress too much about it. Next, we have Shane.
Great. Thank you, Karen. I think one that we started off or highlighted was, given everyone's working from home and everything going for virtual, we talked about, virtual interviewing tips, stuff like that, but also how do you expand your network with everyone kind of isolated at their own home? So kind of talked about, you might even have a small circle, but some of the surprises of kind of even in that small circle, how you can dig in and see where there are connections that can take you to whatever job you're looking for, or what can help open up doors, possibly long-term go through interviewing. And even part of that is, my close friend or my neighbor might be the first point, but they might have 2 or 3 other points that can also build through. And it might take some work in a long term to kind of get you in that information where you can finally get that connection with the hiring manager or the recruiter.
Next, we'd love to hear from Sarah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Karen. So we talked about one really great question I loved is how do we kind of control, not like control the interview, but bring it more into a more comfortable setting. And something that I always like to do, I told my group, is when someone pops on, like an interviewer, just asking them like, hey, how's your day going? It's so nice to finally get to meet you more like in person, kind of bringing into those lines of a conversation. And then also another question that got brought up is good questions to ask at the end if there's anything like something that we can't ask. And I think it's really important for each interview itself, definitely have a list of questions that you want to ask, but see where the flow of the conversation is going, right? Like if you and your interviewer are talking a lot about like DEI or talking a lot about like collaboration, like asking them themselves, like, you know, tell me about like a favorite memory you had. I think a lot of times we keep it really personalized or keep it very business. But I think, you know, questions that I love asking interviewers, because right, they could be potential teammates of yours, is asking them like, what has made, you know, what's been one of the most maybe favorite memory you have had working in this team? What's kind of culture like? What are obstacles that are happening that my role I would be able to help alleviate? And then really highlighting, especially with external candidates, like you're bringing in that external resources, right? Like a different mindset. So really highlighting that value you have.
Thank you, Sarah. And then last we have Christopher.
Hi, yeah. So for me, I think there were two kind of things we went over that like takeaways. I think one of them is don't get kind of stuck up on don't like kind of get stuck up on like job applications minimum requirements. At least in tech, a lot of times people will write requirements and like, oh, like experience with this tool and this tool and this tool, but you realize on the job you learn a lot on the job. So like a huge amount of the stuff, like nothing I do today at work is stuff I knew going into it. So yeah, don't gatekeep yourself in that sense. And the second one is like communicating in an interview, and especially in tech interviews where they're technical interviews where you're like solving a problem live. Don't forget that you're trying to help your interviewer follow along as well. Like they want to be able to follow along with your thought processes. And it's very akin to like if you're tutoring someone, you'll realize sometimes their eyes are glazing and you'll ask them like, does that make sense? And they'll just nod and you're like, okay, not really sure what's going on. So yeah, there's communicating well in an interview is like a huge part of it. And it's an overlooked one. I think a lot of students don't practice enough. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. My screen completely froze, so I hope you all can still hear me.
You're all good, Karen.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone again for joining us today. And another big thank you to all of the speakers for taking time out of their workday to share their experiences. I'd like to take some time to talk about the next session, which is being your authentic self at work. It's going to be Wednesday, August 11th from 12 to 1 p.m. PDT. And you can join alumnus Colin Diaz, April Yee, Shantae Thomas, and Armando Francisco Hernandez, and discover how to remain true to your values, perspectives, and ethnic identity in your career, and also how doing so can benefit your career. So we hope to see you there.